Can you hear me? Okay. Hindi naman ako choppy.
Naman.
Okay, sige. Start na ha. Sige, good afternoon. Wait lang ha. Ayan. Kita niyo yung slide? Kita niyo?
Yes po, Doc.
Okay, sige. Alright, so medyo packed tong ano natin, packed itong discussion natin kasi we will be discussing, well, fever in the tropics, pero I will just highlight yung mga important lang, no? Yung mga common na nakikita natin. Eto, may mga sinama na akong mga iba, pero I clumped them together na lang. May kita nyo mamaya, no? So, I'm Dr. Claro Antonio. I'll be discussing about fever in the tropics. So, very unique ang ating setting as we are in the tropical setting dahil mas marami tayong na-encounter ng mga mas high ang transmissibility natin because of the nature of the environment plus yung ano din yung climate change din ano because of the heavy downpour ng rain, floods or even landslides can actually ano contribute sa pag-transmit nito mga ating mga infectious diseases, no? Particularly yung mga infections in the tropical setting. Okay? Okay, so as for my learning objectives, by the way, I will not discuss further on the ano ha, on the life cycle, on the ano ba, yung nature, yung ano, yung identification, no? So, more of this, I'll discuss more of about the clinical presentation, treatment, management. So, yun ang ating, so yun ang ating magiging focus for this afternoon's lecture. Okay, so, all right, let's start. So, sorry. Okay, sorry. Okay, so for the first part, which is your leptospirosis, I think parang usong-uso to ngayon, ano? So, as a matter of fact, we will expect na we might have another series of ano of admissions in the next months because of in the next weeks because do sa naging flood dito sa atin sa Quezon City, no, marami pa rin na expose and actually may mga cases na rin for the past week meron na ring mga nalatala mga around 10 or 20 cases na na-admit na rin, not in our institution but in other institutions in the government setting. So we expect na madami yan sa mga susunod na weeks pa. No? So leptospirosis is one of the global health threat. It may not be most of the countries, but most of the tropical countries. No, so we have clinical spectrum. It can be mild to life-threatening. No, so the mild form, which can have non-specific lang na headache, muscle pain, myalgia, parang pwede nga siya ma-mistaken as influenza or flu-like symptoms. As compared to the severe form or yung Wales syndrome natin, ito yung nagka-characterize with jaundice, kidney dysfunction, DIC, nagkakaroon ng bleeding, etc. And some of the organs commonly involved, apart from your kidneys, are your lungs, no? That can actually, one of the um, predictors of mortality, no? So patients who develop pulmonary hemorrhage actually will pose poor survival kapag ganyan. And most of them are intubated. Ang masama pa niyan, when they get intubated, dun pala nakikita na may mga ano na, may mga blood na per sputum, per tracheal secretions, and then dun nakikita na mukhang may component na nga ng bleeding, no? Sige. Okay. So the pathogen, Leptospira. Oh, sige, konting review lang. Leptospira is a spirochete, no? Ano pa bang mga ibang spirochetes no organism na ano, nalaman niyo sa microbiome niyo nung second year? Lo, ano pang ibang Leptospira? Hindi ko makita yung chat niyo ha. Wait lang ha. Ano pa yung mga iba nating ano, Leptospiral ano, spirochetes? Borrelia, Treponema. Okay, very good. So, um, ang characteristic dito sa mga organisms ito, Borrelia, Leptospira, Treponema, no? Itong mga spirochetes natin, characteristically, over, nag-evolve na lahat ng organisms but they still remain sensitive to penicillins, no? So kaya ang treatment of choice sa mga ganito is still penicillins pa rin ang first line, no? So well, because of their characteristic LPS, mamaya malalaman natin na isa yan sa mga kanilang virulence factors. But even though they have this unique characteristic na they are still sensitive to penicillins, marami pa rin silang members ng kanilang boy band, no? So parang may 64 silang species, 17 of those are pathogenic and 26 are non-pathogenic, no? And then yan. So they have the coiled structure, and with that, no, it helps them to be motile, no? They're highly motile organisms. They have hooked ends, and they also have their periplasmic flagella na may polar extrusions, no, para makapasok sila or makapag-penetrate or makapag-swim and be mobile, no? And even though they are spirochetes, no, they stain poorly with your gram stain. Pero ang ano dito is usually you can visualize them through dark field microscopy, no? Hindi mo sila makikita sa light microscopy, but through dark field microscopy dapat against a black or dark background, no? Makikita mo sila doon yung mga coiled structures and then yung kanilang movement, even yung kanilang movement. Unfortunately, hindi maganda konti lang wala tayong media, no, na ang growth requirements nila is masyadong specific at masyado silang maselan, ano? Okay, so it may take weeks or months for cultures, no, para maging positive. Pag ganito, hindi na natin inaantay, no? So in clinical practice, hindi na natin inaantay na lumabas pa ang cultures before natin siya ma-diagnose as leptospirosis. But kung tatanungin niyo ano ang diagnostic of choice, yung gold standard talaga is definitely to visualize the organism. Pero in clinical practice, hindi natin magagawa yun kasi masyado nang matagal, no, kung antayin pa natin. So the animal reservoirs, they are the silent carriers, no? So primarily yung mga rodents, even farm animals such as your cattle, pigs, other livestock, even domestic animals such as your dogs, companion animals, no, can harbor and transmit leptospires to humans through close contact or exposure sa kanilang mga fecal materials, urine, sediments. So ito yung mga most common na mga serovar or host association. So for rats, ang pinaka-common are your icterohemorrhagic, no? So ito yung pinaka-common. Ito yung nakikita natin around, no? Yung mga na-expose sa ihi ng daga. Kaya ang kanilang presentation talagang jaundice, hemorrhagic, pulmonary complications, even kidney failure, sometimes because of bleeding, no? So yon, itong serovar na to. There are some na may Copenhagen, some sa cattle, Harjo, Canicola for dogs, and Pomona for pigs, no? So, may mga cross-species transmission din na nag-occur, pero for research purposes, no? But most of the time is the ecterohemorrhagic serovar, no, from the rats are being isolated. Okay, so ang transmission pa rin is direct contact, no? So exposure to urine, blood, or tissue from infected animals through handling or animal bites, no? Environmental contamination, gaya ng floods, or even soil, or even surfaces, no? Na in which leptospires can survive for months, no? May human-to-human ba na transmission? Actually, it's rare. Kasi kung titingnan mo, ang leptospirosis naman kasi is talagang zoonotic infection siya, no? So from animals to humans, no? May mga case reports na nasasabi na may mga reported na mga halimbawa through sexual contact, through breastfeeding, no, or even close household contacts, no, pero walang malaking evidence, no. There's not much evidence, walang big evidence na talagang to include human to human transmission as one of the considerations, no. So dahil doon, hindi siya nagiging significant mode of transmission compared to the most common, which is yung mga environmental contamination, direct contact from infected urine, blood, or tissues from animals. Okay, water. Water is the perfect vehicle because they can survive, mga leptospires can survive in humid environments for months, no? So yung water serves as a important transmission of vehicle, no? So may mga cases, for example, nag-swimming sa isang lake, or for example, nag-trekking tapos umulan, no? tapos nagkaroon ng floodfall or nagkaroon ng washing of the ng mga soil, and then apparently may mga primary reservoirs pala doon, mga rodents, no. So even with that, no, yung water as a means or a vehicle for transmission is very important, no. So dito natin malalaman yung relationship ng floods. Okay, matunog yan ngayon. Floods and yung possibility and correlation nito sa outbreaks. So it's a very complicated, meron itong sanitation issues, meron itong infrastructural issues, meron din itong political issues, no, that can occur, no. So it's a really a multi-sectoral concern, no, not just within the healthcare but even in the community or even as a national issue per se, no. So, ang effect niyan is most of the symptoms para siyang iceberg effect. Kasi ang pinaka-common pa rin talaga, the vast majority pa rin, walang symptoms, no? So sometimes self-limiting, the antibodies, the immune system can actually target it and contain it. And next to that, mga flu-like symptoms, often they are undiagnosed, minsan napapalagpas lang, no? And these are your mild cases, no? And of course, potentially fatal are your severe cases, which comprise around 1%, no? Pero recently, dahil siguro ang dami talagang na-expose, ang dami rin talagang nagkaroon ng flood exposure. So, marami tayong naitatalang cases din talaga ng mga severe or even mortality sa mga severe leptospirosis. So, sino yung mga high risk dito? Veterinarians, agricultural workers, sewage workers, slaughterhouse employees. May naalala ko noon, may isang patient kami na janitor siya, pero wala naman siyang flood exposure. Pero siya yung naglilinis ng stockroom. Siya yung naglilinis ng bodega. Tapos ang daming daga. Ang daming daga. So admitted because of flu-like symptoms, and then eventually nag-develop ng conjunctival suffusion, calf tenderness, myalgia, tapos hindi na umiihi. So clinically, mukha siyang leptospirosis. And then pag-trace mo, epidemiologically, saan niya nakuha? And then doon namin nakita na parang actually possible yon, even without flood exposure or flood, wading in flood water. Because of the rodents, ang daming daga daw talaga. Tapos talagang nung naglilinis daw siya, talagang yung mga alikabok talaga naman daw, So yun. So yung mga risks doon, no. So that's very important then. Sometimes asking what is their work, ano yung nature ng work nila, what do they do? Or for example, sa isang pet house, tapos sila yung naglilinis ng mga cages, ganyan, no? So, yon, even though walang flood exposure, but you have to ask, ano yung kanilang mga potential exposures because of their work. Okay, because of the spread, growing public health concern, because of the increasing vectors such as your rats, sanitation issues, cleanliness issues, structural issues, no? So nagiging siya, it's now becoming an urban problem, no? Hindi lang siya rural problem, hindi lang siya pang probinsya, but actually mas marami pang cases sa urban settings, no? So ito yung sinasabi ko, risk of exposure. So it can be water sports, athletic events, even adventure activities. So kunyari, canoeing, windsurfing, swimming sa mga contaminated fresh waters, athletic events, yung mga triathlons, mga endurance races involving water contact sa mga infected waters, or yung mga mud runs, yung mga sa mountains, obstacle courses, outdoor challenges, especially kapag maulan. Especially kapag maulan. Kasi dyan nagkakaroon ng wash off, no? From one area na contaminated and then umulan, binaha, nagkaroon ng wash off, pati sa ibang areas nagkaroon na rin ng contamination. Okay, so like for example, itong study noong 1998, no, sa Springfield, Illinois. So merong triathlon na some of the participants swallowed yung lake water, no, during the swimming leg, no. And it was identified as one of the prominent risk factors. So for those na nag-attend ng ganyan and then developed symptoms, actually was treated as a case of leptospirosis. And then kasi nangyari before the triathlon, umulan ng malakas. So yung mga dirts from the mountains, from the fields, pumunta sa lake, and then yan, nagkaroon ng exposure, ingestion, yan. Ganon din sa isang case noong around 2000 sa Segama River sa Malaysian Borneo, no? So it was also identified the risk factors, and out of those, 42% of the participants develop leptospirosis. Okay, sa mga travelers, no? So, male travelers usually are much affected, no? Kasi siguro mas adventurous sa mga guys. They go into more adventurous activities, outdoor adventurous activities. And 52% were identified to be infections acquired from Southeast Asia. And 59% of those required hospitalization, no? So, kung makikita ninyo, talagang very implicated ang tropical countries, no? Usually during or mga adventurous activities such as whitewater rafting, jungle trekking, caving, etc. Okay, so there are some unexpected transmission routes, no? It can be a laboratory accident. So from a medtech, nag-handle ng specimen, no? Vehicle accidents sa mga, kunyari, maulan, nadulas, nag-skid, nagka-accident, tapos biglang tumumba sa isang lake or sa isang flooded area, no? So, yun, during automobile accidents or even animal bites from infected animals. So, with this nagkakaroon tayo ng additional information on what are the possible routes of transmission, and lalo pang na lumalaki ang understanding natin on the infection pathways of your leptospirosis. So through your body, it will have its entry to your mucous membrane, to your conjunctiva, to your oral mucosa, to your cuts and wounds. And these organisms are highly motile, and then they will proliferate and cross your tissue barriers. And then from there, magkakaroon ng hematogenous spread to all organs, and then it will undergo the leptospiremic phase, no? And then the leptospiremic phase, so na-detect ng katawan mo na meron kang invasion ng leptospira mo, it will activate your immune response, no? So this is in relation doon sa attempt ng katawan mo to clear it off from your blood system or from your system, no? Tapos, because of their nature, they have the capacity to attach to your endothelium, they have the capacity to attach to your tissues. No, say they can actually involve some of your organs such as your liver, lung, kidneys, heart, and even your brain. So may mga ano sila, evasion strategies, no? So meron silang ways on how they will hide from the immune systems, no? So they can, because of that, they can invade your tissues, your kidneys, your liver, and even your vascular system. So sa kidneys, they can induce ETN or acute tubular damage, necrosis, nephritis, or even impaired sodium absorption leading to polyuria. Sa liver naman, inflammation, bile canaliculi plugging, so nagkakaroon ng cholestasis, and hepatocyte apoptosis, so nagkakaroon ka ng damage of your liver cells. For the vascular system, because nag-incite sila ng systemic inflammation, so nagkaroon tuloy ng malawakang endothelial gap junction because of the malawakang inflammation, no? So ang nangyayari, the platelets nagkukumahog silang i-plug yung mga holes na yon. So nagkakaroon ka ngayon ng consumption or yung DIC, consumption of your platelets, no? And then with that, because ubos na ubos si platelets mo, tapos ongoing pa rin yung yung systemic inflammation. So nagkakaroon ka ng consumption, and then ang taas ng risk mo for bleeding din at the same time. So ang baba na ng platelets mo, tumatakas pa yung plasma mo sa intravascular mo, so nagkakaroon ka pa ng capillary leakage. So dehydrated ka na, nagbi-bleed ka pa, yun. So talagang pangit. Okay? So for bleeding and coagulation disorder, so yun nga, thrombocytopenia because of your DIC, coagulopathy because nababawasan din ang anticoagulant factors mo. So all of these together, nagkakaroon ka ng DIC or disseminated intravascular coagulation. And this is one of the life-threatening complications that will lead to bleeding to your other organs, such as most especially your lungs. Okay, so ito yun, no? So nagkakaroon ka ng endothelial disruption. So malawakang inflammation, malawakang endothelial gap junction activation, widening, no? So the platelets will aggregate and plug all these holes, and then at the same time nagkakaroon ito ng vasculitis or even necrosis because of your decreased perfusion. Some of the immunoglobulins and complement deposition, no, actually can trigger. So ang nangyari nga, parang nagkakaroon ka na ng activation ng storm, no, ng cytokine storm. So even yung mga normal tissues mo sa body gets affected as well, no. In the attempt na gusto na i-clear yan, pero even yung normal tissues mo also affected. Okay, so sa cell wall, ito yung mga virulence factors, no? So you have your double membrane. Okay, so you have your proteins, you have your membrane-associated proteins, yung mga lipoproteins natin. Ito mga lipoproteins na to, they have the tendency to activate your complement, no? Yung mga outer membrane proteins natin. And they activate yung mga vitronectin, no? Pero apparently, parang somehow they get to escape then at the same time because they have their way then na to tone down some of those complement as cascades, no? So they tend to swim and then tone down yung ibang factor, yung ibang components mo ng cytokine inactivate and act ng complement activation, no? Lipopolysaccharide is also one. So it can also bind with your TLR4, no? So usually mababa ang kanilang endotoxic potency. Important pa naman sana 'yon for host immunity para ma-recognize, no? Pero kasi they have the capacity rin to do antigenic shifts. So sometimes they change their dresses, they change their polysaccharides. So they can strut around, without being detected, no? Okay, so some virulence genes such as are coding for the motility, cell adhesion, tissue invasion properties, yan, and your surface proteins, yung na-mention ko rin kanina. Okay, so vaccine development, meron na ba? Meron, on their way, but actually it's not yet being, I think it's still under for research purpose, research pa rin na development, but right now it's not being yet tested then for mass testing. Okay? Pero this is one of the good avenues for vaccine development, yung ating leptospirosis. Okay, so ano yung mga clinical manifestation? So, may incubation period tayo, no? May incubation period, usually 1 to 2 weeks after exposure from a contaminated water or soil. And then they will penetrate your mucous membranes and then they will undergo the leptospiremic phase. Ito yung nalagnatin ka na, no? So usually it will last for 3 to 10 days. Sometimes ito mga flu-like symptoms, no? Paracetamol lang, ganyan, no? And then they thought na baka pagod lang, kailangan na ng pahinga kasi lumusong sa baka, ganyan, no? And ito yung time kasi na actually we can that the organisms can be detected by your PCR already, no? If you want to get samples for cultures, this is the perfect time, yung leptospiremic phase, kasi dyan sila nagsuswim around. When immune phase will set in, eto na yung symptoms mo because of the immunogenic response. Dahil na-detect na ng body mo na may lagalag ng leptospira, so it will activate your immune phase and dito na ka na magkakaroon ng cytokine storm. From lagnat to flu-like symptoms, ayan na, jaundice ka na, hindi ka na umiihi, may mga petechial rashes ka na, no? And dito naman sa sa immune phase, from the blood, dito na sila kakapit sa mga tissues. So actually sa urine, dahil kumapit nito sa kidneys, you can actually get samples from urine and then you can gather that for culture din, no? But then in clinical practice, hindi naman natin ito ginagawa. Kasi ang tagal nga ng cultures, no? So mild versus severe, no? So most patients are asymptomatic, no? They don't seek medical attention. And sometimes, no, pag tinest for antibodies at positive, pero wala nang nararamdaman, no? Yung pala lumagpas na, nakalipas na, no? And then these mild leptospirosis, mild symptoms can be from flu-like, fever, chills, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, conjunctival suffusion, parang pulang-pula yung mata, no? And sometimes self-limiting, sometimes nagpo-persist nga into your whale syndrome. So ito yung mga mild forms, no? Fever and chills, intense headache, usually frontal or retroorbital headache, resembling dengue, no? May photophobia, may irritation, nag-headache, ganyan kapag merong light stimulation. Severe myalgia, usually back, abdomen, calves, yung mga paa, no? So parang walang joint pains pero talagang myalgia. It invades your muscle tissues din kasi. Tapos at the same time, ayan na, nagve-vasoconstrict, nagkakaroon ka ng ng lactic acidosis kasi nga ang pangit ng perfusion because of the systemic inflammation. And conjunctival suffusion. So eye redness without exudate, pero usually this is like one of the characteristic finding of your leptospirosis. Okay, so for physical examination, the most common presenting signs can be your fever and conjunctival suffusion, pharyngeal injections, pulang-pula yung throat, and then muscle tenderness if you palpate their distal extremities, yung calves, yung arms, or even yung buttocks or yung back, no? They can have muscle tenderness. Sometimes may lymphadenopathy and hepatosplenomegaly for severe cases. May mga transient rashes because of the plugging nga, because of the petechial rashes mo doon, because of the DIC. And in severe cases, may mga meningitic presentations and mild jaundice at the same time. So, most of the time they will resolve. Some of them will have continuous persistent symptoms, but in general, mild disease have low mortality. Even though ang daming mild cases, mild diseases, the mortality is low. As compared naman with your severe leptospirosis, although it's just 1%, no? Approximately 1% of the cases, isama mo na yung asymptomatic, no? The mortality rate is 50%, no? So usually kapag more than 40 years old, or kapag meron ng altered mental status, acute renal failure, respiratory insufficiency, hypotension, arrhythmia, obesity is one of the risk factors then, no? We have to understand ang cytokine storms natin, ang mga cytokines natin, malaki ang role ng adipose tissues natin dyan, no? So, the more you have adipose tissues, the higher the risk for you to develop cytokine storm. So, kaya pansin nyo nung pandemic, yung mga COVID-19 na mga obese patients, sila yung talagang mataas ang mortality. Kasi kapag nag-incite na ang cytokine storm, ang hirap i-reverse, no? Kasi ang daming substrate for cytokine storm from the adipose tissues. So Wales syndrome, it's a classical triad of your hemorrhage, jaundice, and acute kidney injury. And not only that, because it can also induce multi-organ failure, even septic shock with widespread organ involvement and bleeding complications sa lungs, gastro, and even your urogenital systems, and even in the brain. Okay, isa to sa mga critical complications. Isa to sa mga pangit, no? Patients will present like cough, chest pain, hingal na hingal, parang ubong aso. And yung hemoptysis, hindi yan magpe-present until na-intubate na, no? And sometimes patients, pag in-x-ray mo sila talagang ARDS ang presentation, puting-puti talagang baga because of the pulmonary hemorrhage, no? So this complication can occur with or without jaundice, and this will represent one of the most serious manifestations of severe disease, which is your pulmonary hemorrhage. There are renal complications. So, ang pinaka-earliest dyan is your non-oliguric hypokalemic renal insufficiency. Hypokalemic yung patient mo. And then kapag chinek mo yung urine potassium, ang taas-taas, pero umiihi pa sila. And then eventually, kapag natuloy pa into acute tubular necrosis, this will now present with acute kidney injury, and then will present as oliguric. And for complications, ayan na, no? Severe ATN, may hypotension, acidosis, and most of the time, if you go into this phase, talagang patients will require hemodialysis. Okay, so ang characteristic dito is loss of magnesium in the urine, no? So usually this is uniquely associated with leptospiral nephropathy, no? In most of the patients, the renal function reverts back to normal in survivors, but it depends. If for example, may leptospirosis yung isang patient with hypertension, DM nephropathy, so konti na lang yung renal cells nila or renal reserves nila, sinira pa ng leptospirosis mo. So sometimes we will not expect that they will return back to normal. Or in severe cases, they maintain hemodialysis for life. Ganyan. Kaya nga pag more than 40 years old, ang taas ng risk kasi nga may mga comorbids na pag ganyan. Neurological manifestations, 13% of them die if they're untreated. 2% if treated appropriately, ang mortality rate, no? So, yung neurologic sequelae can be from leptospiral meningitis, Kasi sometimes ang hirap nito, it can be a diagnostic challenge because patients sometimes lack the diagnostic hallmarks or sometimes they don't present with ictericia, pero meron silang exposure, prodromal symptoms, and then nag-develop ng CNS manifestations such as your meningitic meningitic signs, no? And even they and even when they survive, parang may long-term sequelae. Most of them get depressed, most of them are confused, most of them are having a hard time to concentrate, no? So medyo debilitating siya. So, additional complications, cardiac involvement, sometimes they develop myocarditis because of the immunogenic response, kakaroon ka ng muscle, endocardial muscle inflammation. Other organs, pancreatitis, cholecystitis, rhabdomyolysis for severe muscle involvement. So yun pa yun. Pumangit na nga si kidneys, nag-rhabdomyolysis ka pa, so lalo ngayon na damage si kidneys, no? So all the more that the kidneys get damaged if muscle involvement plus tissue hypoperfusion plus ayan, the works. So talagang the prognosis is poor pag ganyan. Hematologic complications, hemolytic uremic syndromes, TTP or thrombotic thrombocytopenic purpura are some of the common complications of hematologic system. Yan, long-term consequence. Others develop chronic fatigue, still with myalgia, persistent headaches, no? And yung autoimmune uveitis, no? So they develop itong mga potentially chronic eye conditions because of the immunogenic phase of the response ng body towards the leptospiral antigens. Okay, diagnosis. Ito ang medyo tricky part, no? Clinical diagnosis should be considered, no? Especially if patient has history of exposure combined with your clinical manifestation. So, out of all the things na na-mention ko kanina, plus a clinical exposure, no, actually can be clinically diagnosed as leptospirosis, no? Most of the time, leptospirosis are clinically diagnosed, no? We don't have a reliable leptospiral tests around. We have leptospiral antigens, but the cross-reactivity to other diseases such as your viral infections is very high. Even typhoid can also present with leptospiral antigen, sometimes a positive. Even dengue infections, no? So ang taas. And most of the time, pag ganito, ang pinaka-important is you ask for the exposure history, their occupational history, partnered with your clinical manifestations. Okay. So, but these are some of the general patterns lang, no? So, CBC, you can have leukocytosis with left shift or neutrophilic predominance. You can have elevated C-reactive protein, but CRP kasi is just an acute phase reactant. So, lahat naman ng infections pwede naman mag-increase ang C-reactive protein. Or even inflammation, no? Pwede ka naman mag-increase ang CRP. Increased procalcitonin levels. The thing about procalcitonin levels, in patients then with increased, kunyari, nag-renal failure, no? Renal failure settings, tumaas ang creatinine ko, can have increased parang reactive na increased procalcitonin levels. Procalcitonin is a marker for sepsis, ha? Most of the time is from a bacterial infection, ano? But then again, procalcitonin is not used to diagnose infection, no? Kumbaga parang it would just give you an idea if septic nga ba or hindi. But you have to take into account na azotemia or acute increase of your creatinine can present then actually with increased procalcitonin levels, no? Medyo non-specific talaga to for leptospirosis. Even ESR or erythrocyte sedimentation rate, no? Even inflammation, no, can have increased ESR. There are some hematologic changes, thrombocytopenia, na mababa ang platelet count na less than 100,000 is common, well, because nga of your systemic inflammation, your endothelial damage, endothelial gap junction, no? So, you can also check for your coagulations, no? Pero yes, these are some of the patterns that can be non-specific, no? But this is what we teach naman, di ba? This is what we teach that laboratory tests should complement, no, your suspicion, no, kapag ganyan. History din talaga, tsaka physical exam pa rin. Okay, so for mild disease, you can have urinary sediments, proteinuria. If you will check their potassium sa urine, mataas kasi nag-waste siya ng potassium sa urine. And in severe diseases, azotemia, taas ang creatinine, electrolyte imbalances, hypomagnesemia, hyponatremia, hypokalemia, mga ganyan, no? But then again, these are non-specific for to diagnose na per se alone for leptospirosis. Liver functions, bilirubins can be high. Aminotransferases, alkaline phosphatases are usually moderate. So, usually tandem yan. Most of the time, what we see kapag meron ng renal disorder, pag may renal complication na, you check for their SGPT, SGOT, ang taas na. It's more than 3 times kapag ganyan. So, mukhang may idea ka ng, mukhang may liver involvement na rin. No? So, by the way, when you ask for liver profile, no? Kasi parang may mga students na parang they ask for liver profile, no? So, um, sometimes you have to be specific kung ano bang hinahanap mo kasi mahal din ang liver profile, no? So if you're just interested to know lang if there are hepatocyte damage, no, then you can ask for SGPT, SGOT. If you're thinking for cholestasis, then you can partner it with your alkaline phosphatase, no? Specifics lang, no? Kasi masyadong mahal din, no? Kasi pag liver profile, ang dami niyan. So meron ka pang bilirubins, meron ka pang albumin, meron ka pang CBC to check for your thrombocytes, your platelets, no? Pag ganyan. CSF. So for meningitis, usually they are aseptic, no? But they can have pleocytosis. May WBC count ka na mataas, no? Na more than 1,000 cells with lymphocytic predominance. And in early disease, sometimes the neutrophils can be increased, no? So may neutrophils ka muna and then magkakaroon ka ng shift to lymphocytes, no? Pero pag chinek mo yung white blood cell count nila sa spinal tap, ang taas ng cell count, no? At the same time, because may inflammation nga sa sa meninges mo, so increase din ng protein mo. So ang increase ng protein, so ibig sabihin mukhang may ongoing din talagang inflammation sa meninges. Okay, pulmonary findings, you can request for chest x-ray. The chest x-ray can show you bilateral alveolar pattern, patchy alveolar pattern, scattered alveolar hemorrhage, makita mo puting-puting baga, diffuse ground glass opacities, no, in ARDS, may mga septal thickenings, usually sa CT scan to nakikita. Pero on chest x-ray, at least makita mo na parang bilateral hazy opacities na patchy, no, na yon, puting-puti talaga. Okay, so ano bang mga diagnostic methods natin? So, definitely, isolation pa rin talaga ng leptospira, no? Yun pa rin talagang ideal, no? Pero again, hindi na namin nasusunod to, no? Kasi tedious na siya, fastidious pa, ang tagal. So kung antayin ko yun, patay na yung pasyente bago pa lumabas yung result ng test. PCR testing, yes, we have the polymerase chain reaction, no, na testing, but it's not widely available. And sometimes they also yung MAT na sinasabi. Yan. Yung sinasabi nating yung MAT, no, the leptomat, the microagglutination natin. Kailangan ito yung meron tayo, no? Pero hindi lahat din meron. Most of the time we send it to UPPGH, no? Ang mini-measure ng MAT natin are your antibodies, no? Yung antibodies ang mini-measure natin dito. Pero dapat to confirm the diagnosis of leptospirosis, kailangan ma-document kasi na after the immunogenic phase, after the immunogenic phase and then to convalescence kapag nag-resolve na yung patient, kukuha ka ng MAT during that part and then during the convalescence phase, kukuha ka ulit. If nag-increase ang titers ng immunoglobulins mo, then that's diagnostic of your leptospirosis. Ang tagal-tagal nun, parang ganyan, di ba? Pero right now, you can already request for MAC, no? For single titer lang. So if you have a titer of 1:200 or 1:800, no? Given that the patient comes from a highly endemic area or highly reported na area na maraming cases, then you can actually diagnose leptospirosis with just a single titer threshold, no? So ito yung preferred method. If you have a fourfold rise between the acute and convalescent serum specimens na antibodies, na nakita mo, tumaas yung titers ng antibodies mo, no? Kasi it will take time to develop antibodies pa. So this is the preferred method, but then it's, ang tagal. Okay, so some of the tests, meron tayong ELISA, no? To measure the antigens, but then again, the cross-reactivity to other organisms is very high. So timing advantage, for the first 5 days of illness, you can actually do your PCR if meron. Serologic testing during that 5 days, such as for example, yung mga leptomat o yung mga antibody na measurements. In the first 5 days kasi pa lang yan, febrile phase pa lang. So sometimes hindi siya masyadong sensitive. But for PCR, mataas ang role ng PCR for early detection. So meron tayong mga lateral flow tests, no? Ito yung mga bedside, no? Na mga antibody testing natin. But then the timing is important, no? Palagpasin mo muna, mag-immunogenic phase ka muna, then the lateral flow test. And these tests are more than 5 days, no, from the onset, then you can test for that. Latex agglutination and your point of care ELISA testing, no? So these are some of the tests na meron tayo that can be done sa mga ibang laboratories, no? These tests don't require math or cultures, no? But then yun nga, it's not widely available. So for treatment, again, okay, for mild disease na hindi naman natin kailangan ng IV antibiotics, you can still give the first line, which is your doxycycline, no? Especially sa mga endemic regions. Even nga sa mga exposed, no, we give doxycycline din for prophylactic. And for those na hindi ma-tolerate ang doxycycline, you can give azithromycin as an alternative option. And you can also give ampicillin or amoxicillin then as a beta-lactam alternative for appropriate cases, no? But you have to take note of the Jarisch-Hersheimer reaction, no? Hours after the initiating antimicrobial therapy. It's a immunologic phenomenon, no? Ginamot mo na nga, you gave antibiotics pero nagkaroon pa siya ng allergic reaction, hypersensitivity reaction, difficulty of breathing. So yan. So, sometimes it is managed with steroids, antihistamines, no, glucocorticoids na short course lang para humupa lang yung Jarisch-Hersheimer reaction. Okay, for severe disease, no, i-admit mo ng patient, no? These are the patients presenting with oliguria, azotemia, plus multi-organ dysfunction or unstable vitals, no? First line of treatment is the penicillin pa rin. This remains a standard of care for severe leptospirosis. Other options, we give beta-lactam such as Herceptin, cefotaxime, doxycycline, no, as tetracyclines, no, if talaga hindi kaya. Pero most of the time, doxycycline wala kasing IV na doxycycline eh. So, if a patient presenting with severe illness, hypotensive, hindi mo sila mabibigyan ng oral. Kasi ang pangit ng tissue perfusion, paano ma-absorb yung oral medications if not much penetration or perfusion of the splanchnic, no? So how will the oral medications be absorbed kapag ganyan, no? So, yun. Other options, macrolides, aminoglycosides, no? But still, the first line is still your IV penicillins. So there are effective antibiotics, your beta-lactam, cephalosporins, some aminoglycosides, and macrolides. Ineffective are your vancomycin, rifampicin, metronidazole, and your chloramphenicol. Okay. Wala pa rin resistance cases with IV penicillin. So yun yung sinasabi ko earlier, no? Even though they were there a long time ago, no? They did not develop resistance, no, towards your penicillin. So there are no reported antibiotic resistance to date to your penicillins. So long term, we also have the post-leptospirosis syndrome, gaya ng COVID, may mga post-COVID sequelae, no? Depression can persist for years. organ recovery, such as, for example, muscle tissue recovery, kidney recovery, or sometimes pulmonary recovery, no? So there are certain cases of patients who got intubated and then na-extubate na, and then kapag nagtrabaho sila talagang pagod na pagod. And most of the time we refer that to a pulmonary rehab. So nagkakaroon sila ng pulmonary rehabilitation sessions, breathing exercises, ganyan. Okay, so ano yung mga high-risk population? You have your elderly patients, severe complications such as or mga comorbidities natin, and pregnancy, no? So ito yung mga associated with your high-risk mortality. Okay, so prevention strategies, rodent control, no? Pero ang hirap nun, ano? Kasi ang bilis sila mag-multiply eh. So there are targeted controls to strategize itong multiplication ng rodents. Animal vaccinations for the pets, okay? For the pets, for domestic animals. Personal protection, of course, if you're going to wade in flood water or if you will be exposed in an environmental risk for exposure, then you have to wear your protective equipments, footwear, eyewear. Risk education, inform high-risk individuals about their exposure risk from their work and ano yung pwedeng mangyari, especially for those patients na may comorbids. And your chemoprophylaxis, yan. Sino na sa inyo ng chemoprophylaxis for lepto? Oh, wag natin gawin I mean, again, chemoprophylaxis is not hindi siya foolproof ha. So apart on top of the barriers and the mga measures, no, doxycycline prophylaxis is not a foolproof, no, 100% protection, no, na hindi ka mag-develop. So what should I do if I've been exposed to flood water? So first, determine if it was a single exposure or a continuous exposure. What if it was a single exposure? So pag single exposure, you have to check for cuts or wounds. If wala, then you will take 200 milligrams single dose of doxycycline within 72 hours from the time of exposure. What if meron namang cuts or wounds? Then kapag ganon, you have to take 3 to 5 days, once a day, 200 milligrams doxy within 72 hours from the time of exposure. And what if naman ang exposure is continuous, or for example, lalabas ka ng bahay, binabaha, no? Parang ganyan. So if there's a continuous exposure, regardless if you have cuts or wounds, you have to take 200 milligrams once weekly until mag-end yung exposure mo, no? From the flood or from the environmental exposure. So key takeaways from this: early recognition, diagnosis, although PCR is promising, but in clinical practice, clinical recognition plus risk of epidemiologic exposure is mataas na yon, no? That's good enough, no? Para ma-suspect mo siya with potential leptospirosis. Okay. Okay, kaya pa ba? Kaya pa, no? Sige. Okay pa kayo, guys? Okay pa kayo? Gusto ko lang malaman. Okay. Sige. Okay, next. Malaria. For malaria, gaya ng lepto, isa rin siya sa global health crisis, no? Pinagsisikapan ng Pilipinas, the Philippines is striving to be malaria-free, no? And for a time during pandemic, there was short of stocks ng ating mga anti-malarial medications, no. But yung recent na attendan kong seminar on malaria, it seems now we are doing a good job sa Philippines, no, in terms of detection, recognition, and yung mga reported cases natin, especially mortality cases. So, daily deaths of around 1,100 die every day from malaria worldwide. And then 229 million of annual cases reported globally in 2019, and almost 3 billion people at risk, no, living in malaria endemic regions are still at potential risk, no. So, ito yung mga members ng boy band, no, ng blood ng malaria, no. So, you have your P. falciparum, which is the most common, and it is the deadliest. Bakit? This is the deadliest because it affects all of the age group ng RBCs, no. So, wala siyang pinipili. So, mapa-immature man yan, mapa-matured man yan ng RBCs, it can infect, no. Your Vivax, okay, and then your Knowlesi or your monkey parasite found in Southeast Asia can also be fatal to humans. By the way, your Vivax and your Ovale are notorious to develop your dormant forms. Naalala niyo ba yung life cycle? And they are called your hypnozoids, no? Yung hypnozoids na to, they have a tendency to be latent, no? They can hide in the liver and then they can remain dormant for a time. And then it will come to a point na even though nagamot mo na yung leptospirosis, even nagamot mo na yung malaria mo, they can have relapses or they can have recurrences, no? Because some of these hypnozoids are reactivated and then develop the clinical manifestations of your malaria, no? So, yon. So, female anopheles, no? The deadly messenger. Female mosquitoes. Yan. Female mosquitoes ang kumakagat, no? Sila lang ang they are the blood suckers, no? Bakit? Ang guys hindi, ang male mosquitoes hindi. Male anopheles mosquitoes, they feed on nectars, they feed on plants. Pero for female, they feed on your blood not for nutritional purpose but for their eggs. So they suck for blood para ma-nourish yung kanilang eggs for the egg production. So during feeding, so etong mga sporozoites from their salivary glands, no, from the mosquito. So for example, this is an infected mosquito. And then in the salivary gland, they have your sporozoites, no? And these sporozoites will be injected to the uninfected host, no? And these microscopic parasites will be brought to your bloodstream to begin their life cycle. Hindi ko na i-review yon, no? Pero I might ask questions for the life cycle, which is very important, no, for malaria. Okay, so after that, after mag-inject ng sporozoites, they will go to your liver, they will invade your liver cells, your hepatocytes, and then inside your hepatocytes, they will produce your merozoites. So inside the hepatocytes, nagkakaroon ng reproduction, will form the merozoites, and then the merozoites will be released to the bloodstream from the hepatocytes, okay, infecting your RBCs naman, ano, pag ganyan. So the amplification process within the hepatic cells, no, is your schizogony, no. So before the symptoms occur, so meron pa silang so wala ka pang symptoms niyan, ano. Pero once they go to your bloodstream, no, as from the hepatocytes, no, diyan ka magkakaroon ng symptoms, no. So yung hypnozoites, ito yung sinasabi ko kanina, your P. vivax and Ovale, these are dormant parasites that can stay in your liver. They can be there for a year, for years, no, before they get reactivated, no. So hypnozoites, they form your relapses. Symptoms will return after a long period of asymptomatic period, no. So the dormancy mechanism will allow the parasite to plan their survival conditions, no, in favorable conditions wherein kapag dumami na sila, yon, saka na parang Trojan horse, parang alam mo. So they will go to the bloodstream again and fight for war. Okay, so RBC invasions, merozoites will attach to your red blood cells, and then they will undergo your trophozoite stage. They will develop your ring forms, if you will remember your microbiology, your microparadays, no. They will enlarge their trophozoites, and then they will undergo your multiple nuclear divisions in the infected cells, and then it will be released in the bloodstream, burst from your hemoglobin from your RBCs, and then will be releasing 60 to 30 new merozoites, infecting another. So imagine mo, if you have one RBC, and then inside one RBC can produce 30 to 50 merozoites. So if you have a billion, then ilan yon, di ba? So, ang dami nun. So, kaya ito yung part na to wherein the patient really gets symptomatic. So, when the symptoms begin, it is when the parasites reach your around 50 per microliter of your blood, no, or around 100 million total parasites. Grabe. And usually their multiplication rate for Plasmodium knowlesi is 24 hours. For P. falciparum and Vivax is 48. For P. malaria, it's 72. This is very important kasi dito ka nagkakaroon ng pattern ng fever. So for P. falciparum and Vivax na infection, usually the fever occurs every 48 hours, no? For malaria, they occur around 72 hours, and the P. knowlesi can have a daily cycle. This is in coordination doon sa pag-release ng mga merozoites mo, and then the symptoms, and then the RBCs would attack, cytokines will be released, interleukins, so doon nag-develop ng chills during the swimming stage do sa merozoite release no ng inyong mga ng Plasmodium. So you have your ring forms and then will develop to trophozoites. These are all inside the RBCs, the ring forms. They do develop your trophozoites. Ito yung may mga pigments, mga characteristic pigments. Kung maalala nyo sa microbio, iba sa falciparum, iba sa malaria, iba sa knowlesi, iba sa Vivax, no? And then the mature parasites, no, as schizons will occupy most of the cell, and then they will consume the hemoglobin, and then they will be released as merozoites again. Now, the transmission forms, this is the blood stage. So kung meron tayong hepatic stage, meron din tayong blood stage. No? So ito yung develop na ngayon sila into gametocytes. No? They can either be male or female, and then they will develop their sexual forms. No? So from there, they will switch to several asexual cycles. Female gametocytes, usually ang pinakamarami, outnumbering the males by 4:1. No? And then, once these gametocytes no, are matured, sila ngayon yung may ingest ngayon ng inyong lamok. And then ito, inside the lamok, they will develop your sporozoites, no? And then inside the gut, and then from the gut of the mosquito, going to the salivary gland as sporozoites, and then infecting another human being. Okay. So balik tayo sa malamok. No? So when there is a blood meal, the female mosquito will ingest the gametocytes or the matured form mo sa blood stage, and then inside the gametocyte, the male will fuse with the female, okay, your sexual reproduction, and then they will create your zygote, no? They will develop your oocyst, no? The zygote will mature into an ookinete, will penetrate the gut wall, and then from there, maging oocyst, and then pupunta ngayon they will develop sporozoites, and then the sporozoites will go to the salivary gland of your lamok. Okay. So to complete the cycle, the circle of life of the malaria, so from the mosquito vector, doon ang sexual reproduction, the transmission from the sporozoid, and then the human host, this is where your liver, and then the blood stage, the gametocytes, okay, then going back to your mosquito vector, okay. So actually, ang infective stage dito is yung inyong gametocyte, yeah? Kasi ito yung pwedeng kung ikaw ay nasa liver stage pa lang, if it's nasa ano pa lang, merozoites ka pa lang sa liver stage, hindi ka pa infected niyan, no? Hindi pa yan infective stage. Infective stage na yan if you develop gametocytes, and then those gametocytes can be transmitted to the mosquitoes. Yan, no? And then sa mosquito naman, habang nasa gut pa yung oocyst mo, hindi pa yan pwede mag-transmit, no? So may mga days pa na even though they get infected, hindi pa yan makapag-transmit ng malaria. Not until the sporozoites will hatch and then pupunta sa salivary glands. And then that's the time na pwede pa lang siya makapag-infect pa to an uninfected host, no? Kaya pa guys, overwhelming na ba? Sorry ha. I'll try my best So, again, burden pa rin talaga siya, no? So, titingnan natin may nagsabi sa chat. So, ano sabi sa chat? Specific range of years when you say na hindi na mag-relapse yung hypnozoites. Pupunta tayo dyan mamaya. Sige. So, may tanong. Is there a specific range of years when you can say na hindi na mag-relapse yung hypnozoites? Pag-uusapan natin yan in a while. Okay, so this is 2023, no? So kung makikita natin, these are your indigenous cases, no? So yung mga Yung mga red, ito yung mga matataas sa indigenous cases. So may mga local transmissions pa rin talaga. So unfortunately, Philippines is one, no? Um, um, some areas na may zero indigenous cases, somewhere here in South America, I'm not sure kung anong country to, no? But ang gusto ko lang ipakita dito is Philippines is still one of the areas with high indigenous cases. Ito, sana all, these are the countries that already declared as of kailan to? As of, sorry, kailan ko ba na ito? Since 1960 to present, no? They already declared that they are malaria-free by WHO. Kasama dyan ng Australia, China, USA, Argentina, Paraguay. Sa Africa, yung Algeria, Bosnia-Herzegovina, sana all. Okay, malaria pathophysiology. So, clinical features, no? So, gaya na sabi ko, erythrocyte invasion, okay, so, for Plasmodium falciparum, they will invade all of the ages ng RBCs mo. Hindi yan choosy, no? And then the host defense response because of the immune system activation. Okay, tapos, yung mga na-infect na mga RBCs, ang tendency pa nito is they will sequester, no? They can have the tendency pa to have rosette formation. So sama-sama ngayon yung mga infected RBCs. They clump together and then they can form microvascular obstruction. So even sa brain, sa kidney, sa liver, so nagkakaroon tuloy ng damage, no? Hypoperfusion because of the obliteration of these microvasculatures, no? Because of the clumping of your infected RBCs, no? And the clinical manifestations will differ, depends on what organ was damaged, no? Or how severe is the parasitic load or the burden. So yun, so sa erythrocytes, once the organism will invade the erythrocytes, no? So they can be potentially toxic because of the hemozoin. Etong hemozoin na to, these are their toxic hemes because your parasite will consume the heme and the globin, no? Tapos the heme now will be transformed into hemozoin, which is the biological inert, the malarial pigment, and which is actually toxic, no? So the parasite will alter your RBC membrane. Sometimes they get swollen, no? Kaya minsan makikita mo there are ovoid or they are round, no? Nawawala ng biconcave na characteristic ng hemoglobin mo pag ganyan. So they become irregular in shape. So dahil irregular ang shape nila, they can attach to endothelium, they can cause obstruction, they can cause clumping, no, because of the irregularity of their shape. They are more antigenic. Ibig sabihin, if the parasites invade the RBC, may mga ano pa yan, may mga decorative accessories pa yan na these are your knobs, no? And these knobs that are protruded in the RBC, parang mga accessories sila, no? They are very antigenic in such a way na they can attach your endothelium, they can trigger your T cells, they can trigger your macrophages, etc. No? So, yan. So, yon. Ito yung sinasabi ko, knob formation. So, yan. Mga membrane protuberances, no? And they can develop 12 to 15 hours after they invade the RBCs. You have your PFE-MP1. These are adhesive protein. And your site adherence. Etong dalawa, the knob formation and the PFE-MP1 expression, these are your mga protuberances sa membrane, sa outside membrane ng RBCs. No? That can be antigenic and at the same time, increase their attachment to your tissues. No? Yan, kaya nagkakaroon ka ng cytoadherence. So kapag ganyan, there are vascular receptors. Unfortunately, the PFE-MP1, may receptors nito sa brain. So kaya ang taas ng propensity, ang taas ng possibility for those patients with P. falciparum. P. falciparum pa naman is very notorious for the knob formation and the PFE-MP1. Kaya nga PF kasi Plasmodium falciparum sila. Plasmodium falciparum has a higher tendency to produce these expressions outside the membranes of the RBCs. At nadidetect ng brain kasi may receptors yan sa brain. So, kaya ang taas ng risk na mag-develop ng cerebral malaria ang patients with Plasmodium falciparum infection. They can actually also sequester in the placenta and cross the barrier, and even some systemic organs, because CD36 receptor is one of the receptors that can bind, no, to your infected RBCs with malaria, no? So from there, wala na, nag-cytokine release na, nag-ano ka na, inflammatory storm na, etc. Ito yung sinasabi ko. So because of the microvascular obstruction, because of the rosetting or yung clumping, no? At the same time, may microagglutination, no? Then these are very central to your falciparum malaria pathogenesis, no? Because of the clumping of these cells, they obstruct not only to your microvasculature but also to even to your lymphatics, no? Even to your endothelial gap junctions, nagkakaroon kayo ng damage ng endothelium, decrease ang decrease ang nitric oxide production, so nagkakaroon ka ng vasoconstriction. So imagine that wala ka ng nitric oxide, na damage ng endothelial cells mo, may obstruction ka pa, nagkaroon ka tuloy ng vasoconstriction. So all the more na nagkakaroon ka ng decreased tissue perfusion, no, for these cases. So anong nagiging consequence? So yan, so some parasites continue to develop, no? So party-party pa sila. Parasitemia is still proliferating, no? And then they can form mature forms pa rin. So tuloy ang laban, no? Because of their sequestration, they can hide from your complement activation. They can avoid yung macrophage phagocytosis because of your LPS, no? And at the same time, yan, systemic effects, no? So imagine mo, pumaparty ang proliferation ng parasite, may mga confetti pang sinasaboy, may mga confetti pa because of the cytokine storms and everything, no? So even yung mga healthy RBCs mo na hindi naman affected also gets damaged, no? Because because of the systemic effect of your cytokines, interleukins, the fever, even the uninfected cells, no, also gets damaged, no? Kasi hindi conducive sa kanilang environment to sustain or to survive. So yan. So huwag na yan. Okay, so anong host response mechanism? So, we have your splenic activation kasi lahat ng mga infected cells, lahat ng mga latak, lahat ng mga damaged RBCs, all goes to your spleen, and then they get sequestered there, and then hindi na kaya ni spleen to accommodate all of these infected RBCs and all of these damaged RBCs, so nagkakaroon ka ng splenic enlargement, no? So, these damaged parasites remove from the RBCs, and then these cells return to the circulation. So, even yung mga lysed RBCs, even their fragments, no, they will be returned to circulation, and they can be contributory to the systemic effect of your host response mechanism and your cytokine release during the storm, during sa pag-burst ng from the RBCs, no. So fever response, gaya na sabi ko, pag nag-release ang parasite from the RBCs, it coincides also with your fever responses then, no? So you have your quotidian every day, your tertian, which is every 48 hours, and then your quartan, which is every 72 hours, characteristic of your Plasmodium malariae. I might ask these questions. Okay. Genetic protection, no? So may mga population na hindi sila tinatabla ng malaria, no? For some weird or genetic reasons, no? So because some of them have alpha thalassemia, sickle cell disease, no? Melanesian ovalocytosis, no? So ito yung mga protective mechanisms. Either reduce ang adhesion ng RBCs doon sa TFEMP1, or for example, meron silang impaired growth ng hemoglobin S containing RBC that will impair the parasite growth inside the RBCs. No? Yun. So, yan. So, there are some individuals or population that are immune, no, from the invasion of the parasites in the RBCs. Okay, so they develop specific immunities, no? And ito yung tinatawag nating premonition. So this state of infection without illness, no, results because meron silang parasitemia, but they're asymptomatic, no? So usually, this is common among adults and older children with high stable transmission rates. So, ang taas ng ano, so parang dahil ang taas, it's been there chronically, no? So parang nasaning na din, ano? Pero kung mapapansin mo, ang laki ng spleen nila, ganyan. But they're asymptomatic, no? Or sometimes wala at all, talagang wala. But if you will test them for the parasitic load, it's there. So sometimes yung mga host defense mechanism din natin na ng mga ganitong population, especially in Africa, can halt the infection's expansion, no? Proceeding to yung fulminant form of their disease. So it's either they have antibody responses or sometimes itong antibody responses can be transferred to as material protection, fetal to maternal to fetal transmission. Okay. Antigenic variations, some parasite, have different surface antigens during infection that can actually decrease the humoral and cellular immunity. Yan. Clinical features, no? Early symptoms, non-specific. You have the general malay, wala langgana. Systemic symptoms, no? That can mimic a common viral infection. And some misleading presentations, no? Headache, chest pain, cough, arthralgia, joint pains, diarrhea, no? These are all non-specific symptoms. Now, distinguishing it from other conditions, meningitis, patients with bacterial meningitis can have headache, but they are severe, no? Neck stiffness, photophobia, decrease in sensorium, ganyan. For dengue, the presentation is mostly myalgia, but not as severe as dengue. It's usually not as severe as dengue. Okay, so mas matindi pa rin si dengue in terms of myalgia, no? And muscles are not tender, no? For ano sa 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 malaria. Leptospirosis ang may muscle tenderness, no? So usually leptospirosis is one of the ano din, but kadalasan yan exposure pa rin talaga. Yung risk of exposure is yung clincher pa rin talaga diyan. Okay, common clinical presentations, you have your early warning signs, seizures for neurologic manifestations. It can be from seizures in children, can progress to persistent seizures or encephalopathy, and usually can be species specific. For example, what is the pattern of their fever? Is it quartan, tertian, or a daily occurrence ng fever? So can differentiate between these species. No? Splenomegaly, okay, can be present in endemic areas. Other findings such as hepatomegaly, jaundice can be common in adults, walang rashes, no? And petechial hemorrhages are very rare for malaria. Anemia, no? So apart from splenomeg in malarial endemic areas, so there can be anemia because nagkakaroon ka nga ng chronic parasitic consumption, no? Because of their reproduction. Kaya nagkakaroon ka ng chronic anemia in these cases, no? Because of the severe parasitic density. For severe falciparum malaria, okay, for uncomplicated mortality is 0.1, but if it's very severe, no, it can rise to 20%. Cerebral malaria is one of the life-threatening conditions. Obtunded, delirium, abnormal behavior, no, and these are one of the poor prognosis, no, kapag meron ng ganitong presentation ang patient with severe malaria. It can be meningeal signs, passive neck reflection resistance, but typically meningeal irritation is absent. Ang pinaka-common pa rin talaga are your obtundation, even seizures, no? Ocular signs may be divergent, preserve pa rin ang corneal reflexes mo. Motor signs can be variable. Tendon reflexes can also be variable. Posturing can be observed in some of the severe cases, but most of the time, seizures, fever, obtundation, or decreased sensorium is the most common pa rin, no? You have to do fundoscopic findings because almost 30 to 60% then can present with discrete spots in the retina observed in many patients. So, and then tingnan mo rin kasi for doing the fundoscopy, you will also evaluate, you will be able to evaluate also if there are increased intracranial pressure, ganyan. Yan ang common. So seizures and ang isa sa mga common na neurologic outcomes. Hypoglycemia. So patients with severe malaria experience hypoglycemia, no? Well, that is because of the parasite, na consumption ng parasite, and at the same time that the parasite invades the liver. So ang liver andun ng gluconeogenesis, no? So dahil sira ang liver mo, impaired din ang gluconeogenesis. The same time, increase din ang glucose consumption. So wala kang balance. So increase ang glucose consumption, decrease ang gluconeogenesis mo. So one of the critical complication will result to hypoglycemia. So acidosis, yan because of circulatory failure, meron kang microvascular obstruction, lactic acidosis, anaerobic respiration, decreased tissue perfusion, etc. So leading to acidosis to your other organs, no? Especially in your kidneys. So pulmonary complications can have pulmonary edema na non-cardiogenic, which is one of the most common form of ARDS in malaria, severe malaria, and your acute kidney injury. So common ito in falciparum malaria, no? So mapapansin nyo, karamihan ng mga severe forms sa malaria is caused by your falciparum, no? Because of its propensity to affect all of the RBCs. Yan. Black water fever, umiihi sila ng ano. So meron silang hemoglobinuria. So very dark in urine, no? And anemia with less than 3 grams per deciliter is one of the hemoglobin threshold. And it's one of the indicators of the increased or poor outcome. Okay, coagulation, liver dysfunction because of the liver involvement. Okay. Transfusion, there are some cases na mayroong transfusion malaria, but this is very rare, no? Now, the thing with transfusion malaria, since wala na silang hepatic stage, most of the time, they will not complete their life cycle. Gets? So parang dumiretso na sila ng blood stage, no? Hindi na nag-undergo ng hepatic stage, no? So this is usually characteristic sa mga Vivax o Vale na kapag ganyan, even though may Vivax and Ovale, but if it's from transfusion related, they don't develop hypnozoids kasi hindi naman sila nagkaroon ng hepatic stage. So even though in transfusion malaria with Vivax and Ovale, they don't have hypnozoids, and yung mga gametocytes nila are actually yan. Even though you don't give Primaquine, that's fine. Yon, hyperreactive malaria splenomegaly because of the increased sequestration of your infected RBCs to your spleen. Diagnosis, ang diagnosis pa rin talaga is identification of organism. Malaria is not a clinical diagnosis. Nanggaling sa ganito. Ganito presentation. Nag-seizure. Malaria to, ganyan. No, it's not. The diagnosis of malaria is not a clinical diagnosis. It should be coupled with your magsususpect ka lang if galing sa endemic areas, meron kang clinical presentation, the gold standard pa rin is your blood smear examination. At hindi na siya ordinary blood smear examination. The examiner should be highly competent, no? Kasi hindi lahat may experience to read blood smears, no? So sa mga medtechs natin dito, the blood smear should be what? Thick and thin smears, no? Thick and thin smears. And the timing is very critical, no? Kailangan alam din natin kung how are we going to get it, no? Sometimes they coincide it with the release of the organism during the febrile period, so they get samples from that, no? But others actually kahit wala, no? You can actually get multiple samples for smears, no? Para tumaas ang yield natin. So there are two diagnostic methods. We have your light microscopy, yung thick and thin smear natin, and your rapid diagnostic test. Ang problem lang dito sa rapid diagnostic test, well, hindi lang siya widely available, but sometimes they cannot differentiate what species, no? Or sometimes they cannot compute for the parasitic load kapag ganyan. Positive or negative lang sabihin nila sa'yo. Okay. So positive test, antimalarials should be given, and negative test, patients should be reassessed for other common causes of fever, no? So again, malaria is not a clinical diagnosis. It should be coupled with a thick and thin smear diagnosis, no? Okay, kasi yung management din naman ng malaria will depend on what species. So wala namang target all, no? Kasi depende on the species, magbibigay iba-iba ang regimens din kasi nila. So ito ang standard, the field, the light microscopy, no? So the microscopists should be should be competent, should be experienced, no? Ito pa rin ang pinaka highly sensitive and highly specific diagnosis when it will be performed well, no? So ang advantage ito, it's mura, it's low cost, it has high sensitivity, and it can detect species differentiation by their morphologic features. So, ang kagandahan din, so bakit thick and thin smear? Because the thick smear, the thick part of the smear can compute for your parasitic load. Important ang parasitic load, bakit? Mamaya. And then the thin smear for the speciation para makita mo ano yung morphology. Now, it's important to do parasitic density. It's important for the medtech to do the parasitic count, no? Bakit? Kasi doon magbe-base if nagkaroon ng response to treatment. When you start your anti-malarial treatment, you have to request serial monitoring ng parasitic density to document if there was clearance of your parasite already. Because if wala, if same pa rin ang parasitic density, baka we might be dealing with a resistant form of malaria pala, no? So, or baka mali ang diagnosis or baka mali yung yung pagkaka identify. So that's very important. So ang challenges is, again, it should have adequate training, laboratory staff, good quality slides, quality microscope, and quality assurance and control programs. Okay, so classical methods still remain superior. So thin smears, na-mention ko na yan, parasitic density should be measured. Thick film, because we have to measure for the parasitic density, and the parasitic counting method for the treatment response. Okay, so may mga modern rapid diagnostic tests. They are rapid, they are simple, they are sensitive. Some of them have specific antibody-based tests, no? And these tests can also detect specific antigens even from your finger prick samples. So ang kagandahan naman ito, it can have rapid results. It can have minimal training because ang training lang naman dito is prick, ilalagay sa well, extract, and then lateral flow, and then yan, ano? So, madali lang siya gawin. It's very easy. But the WHO identified some of the selection criteria for it to be legit. So, it should have a 75% detection score. It should have a less than 10% false positive rate and less than 5% invalid rate para maging legit yung inyong RDT or your rapid diagnostic test. So, meron mga tests, no? They have target antigens. We also have RDTs na to detect PFHRP2, which is your Plasmodium falciparum, histidine-rich protein 2, commonly targeted yung antigens, and then your lactate dehydrogenase and your aldolase, no? Which are your antigens present in one of the antigen target for malarial parasite, no, in blood samples. Okay, so ang the downside lang of the PFHRP2, which is one of the most commonly used, no, the patient can have prolonged positivity. Even weeks after treatment, the patient can still have positive PFHRP2, no? So which it can be advantageous and problematic thing at the same time, no? So dahil nga sa prolonged positivity, sometimes patients who have taken anti-malarial drugs, no, and clear peripheral parasitemia still can show positive PFHRP2 tests. So these are the limitations or the challenges. It can have poor sensitivity. They can have quality variations based from the limitations na sinet ng WHO. Okay, some of the antigenic shifts, also some HRP2 deletions in the Amazon region. I don't know kung meron din dito sa atin, but that renders your HRP2 tests unsuitable. So when tests are negative, if for example you did the light microscopy, if the tests are negative and the RDT results are also negative, then malaria is extremely unlikely and you should look for other causes of your fever. Okay, so yan yung mga iba, polymerase chain reactions, but It's highly sensitive but not practical because it's expensive. Okay. You have your loop-mediated isothermal amplification, no? But again, this is for research purposes. Okay, laboratory findings. Anong pwede natin makita? Patients can have anemia. WBC count can be elevated in severe infections and platelet counts are usually low to less than 100,000. So differential count, patients can have slight monocytosis, eosinopenia, lymphopenia, and weeks after infection can have eosinophilia and reactive lymphocytosis. ESR can have inflammatory markers, can be non-specific. So for mild infections, antithrombin, coagulation abnormalities, no? Antithrombin levels can be reduced for mild infections, but prolonged PT-PTT can be very severe in severe infections. Okay. Metabolic acidosis, electrolyte imbalance, na-mention ko na to. Elevated lactate, creatinine levels are increased. Muscle and liver enzymes such as your CPK, no, your creatine phosphokinase can be elevated, and your bilirubin. Urinalysis sa malaria, usually normal, no, in uncomplicated cases. But in severe cases na meron ka na acute tubular necrosis, ganyan, no, you can have casts, no, you can have white blood cell, WBC casts, no, that can be observed in the urinalysis. CSF, usually they have opening pressures of 160, usually 200, no, ang mataas. Less than 1 protein levels, okay, less than 20 cell count, no, usually normal or sometimes it can be slightly elevated. So the key diagnostic principles here is one, to suspect exposure, you have to confirm it parasitically, and if it's positive, you have to initiate your your treatment. Okay, for CSF analysis is very important because it can not only important to detect malaria, but also to rule out other forms of CNS infection as well. No? So, yun. So again, clinical suspicion, if you have a fever and exposure, do the parasitological test by microscopy or RDT. If it's positive, then treat. If it's negative, then investigate other causes. Huwag mo nang pagpilitan. No? Okay. Kasi we also want to prevent overtreatment din. No? And at the same time, different species have different regimens. Okay. Future directions, yan. Treatment, yan. Ito, treatment. So for treatment, ang first line, okay, so you have your, bago ko i-share yan, sorry yan. Okay. Pinakita ko to kasi it's very important, no, para matutunan ninyo bakit binibigay natin, why do we give this antimalarial in these types of species, no? So for exoerythrocytic cycle or for hepatic cycle or hepatic stage, effective dito ang Primaquine. Okay? So hypnozoids, ganyan, no? Or yung mga schizones mo, no? So Primaquine is effective in this stage, no? Now for the erythrocytic cycle, your artemisins, your atovaquone, your chloroquine, and your quinine, no? Your ACT or your artemisinin treatments, no, are effective for your RBC phase, no, or for your blood stage, no. Once they develop as gametocytes, no, quinine is effective as well as your Primaquine. Okay, so for liver stage, Primaquine. For your blood stage, your chloroquine and your ACTs are effective. Your gametocytes, Primaquine is effective, no? Okay, so balik tayo. Okay. So ACT is the gold standard, your artemisinin-based combination therapy, no? So this is the most effective treatment pa rin for falciparum malaria. So, ang kagandahan dito for AL or artemether lumefantrine, no, sakop na niya ang lahat ng organisms, no, from chloroquine resistant falciparum, for chloroquine resistant Vivax ovale, ganyan. So yan ang first time pa rin talaga, artemether lumefantrine. You give it for 3 days, no. Tapos for the falciparum, For the Vivax, you can give chloroquine pa naman. In cases na wala pang chloroquine resistance, no? But here, I think in the Philippines, we give na the artemether lumefantrine kasi may mga chloroquine resistant cases sa tayo na Vivax, no? We give Primaquine. We give Primaquine kasi for the dormant liver stages. So yung tanong kanina, kailan ang duration, no, ng phase na masasabi nating free na siya, no? Actually depende rin kasi yung treatment. If the patient was not given Primaquine and if the patient has Vivax, expect that these hypnozoids will still be there. After a year or two, they will develop the same symptoms ulit, no? Ang pangit lang kasi sometimes pag nag-dormant na, minsan hindi natin na-detect na yan pag ganyan. Unless they develop their symptoms, no? And most of the time, if patients are adequately treated with with Primaquine, if merong hypnozoids, no? The treatment is very good naman, no? The prognosis is okay naman unless hindi nabigyan ng proper treatment. So again, for Vivax and Novale, ito tandaan nyo na lang. For Vivax and Novale, you give Primaquine. Okay? Primaquine after the artemether lumefantrine. Or kunyari, if you have Vivax and Novale, you can give chloroquine. After chloroquine, for 3 days, then you give your Primaquine. Okay? For yung Primaquine mo, for 14 days yon. Okay? For 14 days, for the hypnozoids mo. For the falciparum, you give your artemether lumefantrine. Hindi na tayo bibigyan ng chloroquine kasi chloroquine resistant na tayo for Plasmodium dito. So we give artemether lumefantrine. Then you give Primaquine for 1 day lang, no? Kasi wala namang hypnozoids ang Plasmodium falciparum. Ngayon, for example, pwede ba tayong magkaroon ng Plasmodium falciparum tapos Plasmodium vivax mixed infection? Pwede yon. Pero paano natin siya gagawin? If meron tayong, sorry, skip na ako ha. So ito yon. So for uncomplicated malaria, for P. falciparum, you give your AL and then you give single dose Primaquine. For Vivax, you give chloroquine if pwede, but if may known cases of resistance, then you give your AL, your artemether lumefantrine, and 14 days of your Primaquine para sa hypnozoids mo. What if, ayan, for severe malaria, ang first line mo pa rin dito is your artemether, ang first line mo pa rin dito is your, saan na ba yun? Quinine IV or your artemether IM or your artemether na IV, no? So, of course, we have the risk here of hypoglycemia, cardiac arrhythmia, and synchronism. So it should be in the ICU basis. No? And once they respond naman, nakakain, you can convert it to your oral counterpart. Okay. Ayan. For mixed infections, what if, for example, meron kang P. falciparum and P. vivax, no? So, ang gagawin mo dyan, you will give your AL for the falciparum and for the Vivax na rin. And then, instead of giving 1 day lang ng Primaquine, you give your Primaquine for 14 days. That is to address the Vivax. So, ganun din. If you have Vivax or Ovale, you give your Primaquine for 14 days. If it's with falciparum, then you give your AL, your artemether lumefantrine. Ganun lang siya kasimple. Nagigets nyo ba? Sorry ha. Nagigets nyo ba? Na-absorb pa, may nada-download pa ba kayo sa sinasabi ko? Okay. Okay. So for severe, you have your artesunate IV. Okay. You have your artemether IM as an alternative. You can step down to oral once patient can tolerate medications and mixed infection follow-up. If it's with Vivax, then you give Primaquine for 14 days for relapse prevention. Okay, critical care supportive, yan. Malaria prevention. Okay, malaria prevention. Meron tayong mga prophylactic drugs. Malarone, Atovaquone, Proganil, wala, I'm not sure, parang wala tayo nito sa atin. But we have the doxycycline and the mefloquine. Okay, so si mefloquine, you give this once a week. But it should be given 4 weeks before ka mag-travel. 4 weeks before mag-travel, during your stay there, and then 4 weeks after pa. No? So medyo matagal yon. So the doxycycline naman, it's 100 milligrams daily, but you can start this already 1 to 2 days before the travel. So 1 to 2 days before the travel, during your travel, and then 4 weeks pa after mo bumalik, no? So you have to ask your patient, Dok, pupunta ako ng mag-hike ako sa Palawan, ganyan, sa mga bundok-bundok doon. Or pupunta ako ng ganitong bansa, no? Kailan ka pupunta? Doc, bukas na. No? So pag ganun, hindi mo na mabibigay si mefloquine. Then you give doxycycline. Si doxycycline lang kasi, ang pangit lang dito is kapag matagal mo siyang tinitake, nagagastric irritation ka na, nagkakaroon ka ng diarrhea, nagkakaroon ka ng photosensitivity. So you have to advise your patients to wear their sunblock, their sunscreens, they should wear their hat, no, if they will maintain on doxycycline prophylaxis if they're on travel. Si mefloquine, maganda sana, pero kasi once a week ito, but it should be taken 2 weeks before pa the travel. So if they have the benefit pa of next month pa naman, Doc, sige, you start them with mefloquine. Okay, so ganun yun. Ngayon, you have to take note lang because if mefloquine, sometimes they develop depression. Especially na if the patient has history of depression. Or kung stable naman yung depression and on medications, okay lang. Pero if, for example, uncontrolled depression, not on medication, so it might push them to develop depression pa, no, with mefloquine. Okay, so what are the high-risk areas in the Philippines, no? High risk is the southern Palawan, moderate risk is central Palawan, low risk, northern Palawan, nearby islands. So ano yung mga low risk pa? Yung Coron, Busuanga, Culyon, Cuyo. Okay. Puerto Princesa, actually, low risk na rin siya. Endemic provinces, Sultan Kudarat, Sulu, Tawi-Tawi, Maguindanao. Some areas in Occidental Mindoro, Cagayan Valley, Davao del Norte. No? In general, Palawan remains the high risk pa rin. Pero, ganito, you have to ask them, ano activity na gagawin nila. If nasa city lang naman, then hindi na. Kunyari, Puerto Princesa, nasa city lang naman. Ano ba to? Ano ba to? Ano ba to? Island hopping, ganyan. Hindi naman kailangan. Pero if they will go to the outskirts, gaya ng isang journalist na nagmundok-mundok, yon ang high risk yon. If you're not sure, what you can do is, merong ano ba to? Visitor center, yung tourism center, no? And you can ask them if kailangan nyo ba you can tell them these are your activities. Pagpunta mo doon, you tell them your activities, and if they see that it's high risk, then they can actually send you to the municipal health office to give you prophylaxis for free. So yon. Okay, so travel advisory, you have to be alert on the areas na may high risk or low risk. Vector control priority, if high risk, then you should wear your protective clothing, no? And elimination strategies, well, this is more of community community movement, no? Yung mga breeding grounds, etc. So you combine mosquito prevention measures with chemoprophylaxis when traveling to endemic areas. Last, arbovirus. Last ito. Si arbovirus, pinagsama ko na dito si dengue, si Zika, tsaka si chikungunya. Okay? Hindi ko na sinama si West Nile tsaka si yellow fever kasi wala naman dito sa atin. Okay? Arbovirus, arthropod-borne viruses. Okay, so marami pa rin affected. Dengue cases are still increasing. It's now a year-round infection, no? Hindi na siya seasonal, no? Most of the time, that's a climate change. It's now becoming a year-round infection. So it's a leading threat right now because we don't have the vaccines here, and because of the climate change, the flooding, and the urbanization, no, can also be one of the factors. Then that's why it's ang taas ng cases then. So okay, so you have your three phases of your dengue, di ba? You have your febrile phase. The febrile phase is the one na meron kang lagnat, myalgia, muscle pain, no? And then after the febrile phase, actually it can even extend to 5 days pa nga eh. After the febrile phase, mawawala ang fever. Pag nawala ang fever, the patient will feel good, the patient will have increased appetite, muscle pains resolve. But actually, this is the phase wherein your platelets will continue to go down. Plasma leakage is still evident. So this is where the complications arise. This is where you get pleural effusion. This is where you get congestion. This is where you get bleeding. Okay, because the endothelial junctions are very wide. And ito yung immunogenic phase na tinatawag natin, no? Parang sa leptospirosis, parang ganun. And then day 6 to 10, this is where the recovery phase, wherein there will be resorption of the fluid, the patients will recover, fluid retention will decrease, no? So, yeah. So, dengue risk factors, either by age, infants, young, and then elderly, comorbids like pregnancy or with underlying medical conditions, or if they have secondary infection, which is the greatest risk factor, no? Because infection, if you get infected with a different dengue serotype, so na yung antibody na should be na-neutralize nung same variant, nung same serotype, if you have the same if you have the different serotype na nag-infect sa'yo, it can affect, no? It can trigger more complications or more tendencies for bleeding kapag ganyan. Okay. Chikungunya, the joint pain, no? Ito yung pinaka-notorious. For the dengue, ang kanyang common is pwedeng fever, headache, breakbone fever, no? Yung talagang muscle pain, myalgia, which is very common, which is very pressing for dengue. Si chikungunya naman is joint pains, no? So, most of them develop incapacitating arthralgia, as in gumagapang. They are crawling, they can't get out of the bed, they can't walk, they can't even eat, no? Because of severe systemic joint pains. And the disease usually occurs 4 to 8 days after an infected mosquito bite, no? Some complications can be fatal, especially in elderly patients. We had a patient before who had severe chikungunya. She is a lupus patient, so she's on steroids. So alam naman natin if patient is on steroids, blunted ang immune response niya. So nagkaroon siya ng severe na replication ng viral infection ng chikungunya. Patient develop myocarditis, develop hypotension. Yan. So namatay yon. So chikungunya was first identified 1952 in Tanzania. 2004 naging matunog ito. It went into some outbreaks in some areas. In 2024 we still have 460,000 cases, no, of autochthonous transmission in most of the countries across all WHO regions. Si Zika naman is the pregnancy naman. Caused by the Zika virus, most of the time they are asymptomatic, no? But when they become symptomatic, they present with rash, conjunctivitis, fever, arthralgia, malaria, arthralgia, myalgia, lasting for 2 to 7 days, no? But unlike Zika, unlike other arboviruses, they can be transmitted through sexual contact, blood transfusion, organ transplantation, and even from the mother to the baby, no? Okay. So, naging devastating impact nito, especially nung mga nagkakaroon ng mga congenital complications. So, Zika infection during pregnancy can cause severe birth defects like microcephaly, developmental disorder, brain disorders, some cleft deformities, no? Others have GBS syndrome, encephalitis, myelitis, in adults, no, requiring intensive medical treatment. So, in 2016, hindi ko alam kung maalala nyo to, pero it became a public health emergency, no, because of the Zika outbreak, no, that is associated with microcephaly sa mga clusters ng population in Brazil, if you remember that, no, tapos mga GBS na syndromes, no, na dumami. So, kung makita natin, they have similar presentations, no, but eto. So for dengue, for days 1 to 5, you can get NS1 detection. Some you can also get RT-PCR or even can request for viral isolation. We do not do virus isolation kasi very tedious ito. Now, for day 5 and above, antibodies nang meron dito, no? So you can request for your IgM and IgG at this time, no? NS1 antigen at this time, hindi na siya ganun ka-reliable. And for convalescent testing, you can request for IgG titers and observe if there will be fourfold increase, parang sa leptospirosis, no? But for dengue, yeah, ito yung mga current recommendations na pwede nyo i-request. So, depende on what of illness that you captured the patient, doon magbe-base what laboratory tests that you will request. Okay? So, so we have your RT-PCR, good for 24 to 48 hours, and it's one of the definitive diagnosis. Meron tayo nito in some institutions, but it can be expensive. NS1 antigen can be used in limited resource setting, and this is very fast. No? In an hour, may result ka na yan. But then again, it should be within the 5 days. No? Also, you have to remember, NS1 can also have cross-reactivity to other conditions, such as other viral illnesses, other bacterial infections, such as your typhoid, pwede yan. So, serology limitations, you have your reduced IgM response kapag kunyari, that can lead to diagnostic accuracies, no? So, depende rin on the timing when you requested the test. For chikungunya, best pa rin during the 7 to 8 day of illness. No? So what are you going to do? You will perform your RT-PCR. This is best during this period. You can do serologic testing, but serologic testing from end of the first week until the end of the month can still be positive, no? Pero it should be the PRNT, no? The PRNT, it is one of the testing na this can remove yung nuances ng ibang cross-reactivity, no, with other related alpha viruses. So for Zika naman, so for chikungunya, it's RT-PCR. For chikungunya, RT-PCR din, no? So within 7 days, and then you can request urine specimen for up to 14th day, and some cases CSF and even amniotic fluids. So a positive test for NAAT or RT-PCR is the positive confirmatory test for acute infection. You can have IgM serology at the end of the first week, but then again, meron siyang cross-reactivity with other flaviviruses such as your dengue. So unless you do PRNT confirmation, then okay yon to reduce lang the factor of cross-reactivity to other flavivirus or alpha viridae. Okay, so special testing considerations, if there are pregnant women na exposed to an endemic area, you might want to test them. Congenital cases, okay, for patients with birth defects, no, you can do CSF testing or NAAT or PRNT as needed. Or if there are any co-endemic areas na recommended, especially kung galing sa high-risk areas, no. Yan. So ang key principle dito, use NAAT early or RT-PCR and use your serology later, after a week, no? Kasi andun yung antibodies natin. Now, for dengue, meron tayong case definition. So sa dengue, we have your dengue with or without warning signs. Ang warning signs dito is meron kang nausea. Ito yung mga warning signs. Abdominal pain, persistent vomiting, fluid accumulation, increased hematocrit with rapid platelet decline, bleeding, lethargy, restlessness, or liver enlargement. Now, for severe dengue, you have one or more serious manifestation. Ito yung shock, hypotension, severe bleeding, severe organ damage, then you will fall under severe dengue. For severe dengue, meron kang shock, narrow pulse pressure, severe bleeding requiring medical intervention, and severe organ impairment such as your hepatic injury, CNS involvement, and cardiac damage. For chikungunya, tatlo lang yan. Meron kang suspected, if meron kang fever and arthralgia, suspected yon. But if you have a clinical, and then if you have epidemiological exposure, that it can be probable. Or it is a confirmed case if the lab criteria is met. So unless you do RT-PCR, IgM antibodies, or fourfold IgG rise in the paired sera from your active to convalescent phase. For chikungunya, may atypical case, laboratory confirmed, pero unusual ang manifestation. For severe acute case, you have your laboratory confirmed with organ dysfunction. For suspected case, wala kang test pero meron kang relapsing symptoms, prolonged joint pains, arthritis, weeks or months, tapos meron ka ring epidemiologic exposure. For Zika naman, you have suspected if you have rash, fever, conjunctivitis, arthralgia, coming from a suspected case, probable if you have a suspected case with positive Zika and IgM, laboratory confirm if you do the RT-PCR test, no? Or if you do the PRNT confirm serology. Now, for Zika diagnostic, it's either you have this clinical presentation, sudden baculopapular rash, plus 2 or more. If you have fever, conjunctivitis, arthralgia, myalgia, pre-articular edema, and a history of travel to endemic area within 2 weeks prior to onset. Then you will test for RT-PCR for viral RNA, and also, I think meron tayo dito, Zika, no? The arboviral panel tests, no? It's a blood test for RT-PCR. So we have it here sa commercially. It's a commercially available. Okay, so ito yung mga ano nila, overlapping symptoms. So for dengue and chikungunya and Zika, most of them can most of them can have retroocular pain. So ito yung mga ito yung mga cases, ito yung mga symptoms na pwedeng mag-differentiate between them. For dengue, most of them thrombocytopenic, leukopenic, increased hematocrit. For chikungunya, really the arthralgia, and then the Zika is the pruritus. Yan, no? Para magkaroon kayo ng idea. Treatment and prevention, wala tayong antiviral for them, no? Supportive care lang and vector control. Now for dengue, we have vaccine for dengue, but the regulatory approval is limited kasi nga because of safety concerns. Chikungunya meron in US and Europe, but only for travelers and laboratory workers and not for public use. For Zika, wala tayong vaccines for that. Okay, so early recognition, laboratory confirmation, and evidence-based care. So pag dengue na without warning signs, outpatient. Kapag with warning signs, you admit them. And if severe dengue, admit to ICU. Okay, so ayan. Bilisan ko na ha. Okay, so ito yung sinasabi nating ano. So ito ang ano diyan, ang ating resuscitation. Okay. So sa fluid management, if for moderate risk, then you can start with crystalloids, and then you can compete for their maintenance plus deficit replacement, no? And once they go into critical phase, don't overhydrate, no? Because when you overhydrate, baka mag-retention, mag-congest naman. But if you underhydrate naman, baka naman magkaroon ng increased hematocrit, mas pangit yun, no? So, ayan, too little fluid, hypovolemic shock, too much fluid, pulmonary edema. For severe dengue, first line is your crystalloids, around 10 to 20 ml per kilogram over 50 to 30 minutes, and then reassess for perfusion and hematocrit, repeat for RBCs, for CBC. And then if this rising hematocrit, you repeat the bolus. If falling hematocrit, consider bleeding. So kapag dito na, you consider transfusion. Okay. So ito yon. So we have a shock patient. If you give your initial resuscitation, if may improvement, then you do maintenance and then monitor their CBCs regularly, like 6 to 8 hourly. If walang improvement, you check your hematocrit. If increased pa rin, you can administer another bolus. If nag-improve, then maintain them to this maintenance. If wala, you check for the hematocrit. Kung bumababang hematocrit, then you might want to consider bleeding and you will transfuse blood. Pero ano ba ang role ng blood transfusion? Platelet is not recommended already. Gone are the days that the platelet is transfused as a knee-jerk reaction for thrombocytopenia, no? Hindi na po gaya ng dati na ang tawag pa sa dengue H fever na left and right ng platelet transfusion. Ngayon, hindi na. Because guidelines show that there is no reduction in bleeding risk with prophylactic transfusion. Okay? Plus, these complications. You can have overload, transfusion reactions, and alloimmunizations. So ano lang indications? If you have active bleeding or even nga for too low platelets, even less than 20,000, hindi ka pa rin talaga magta-transfuse, no? Pero you can transfuse packed RBCs instead of platelet. If merong severe bleeding, unless mag-bleed, then saka ka magta-transfuse, but not platelet. You can transfuse red blood cells. Okay? Fresh frozen plasma, walang role unless documented or if the bleeding is very severe, but usually this is very rare. Okay, so ang clinical takeaways, if without warning signs, outpatient, fluids lang, paracetamol. If with warning signs, advise admission, IV fluids, then close monitoring. For severe dengue, aggressive IV therapy, and then ICU monitor, and then transfusions. No for platelet transfusions. You will only transfuse blood products such as your packed RBCs or fresh whole blood if there is an overt bleeding. Okay, other treatment. Dengue, chikungunya, Zika for NSAIDs, corticosteroids, immunoglobulin. NSAIDs in dengue, no. Don't give NSAIDs for dengue because of the increased risk of bleeding, no? And at the same time, if you give aspirin, it can be implicated for Reye syndrome for children. Okay, so ang preferred pa rin is paracetamol. So don't advise them to give ibuprofen, mefenamic, celecoxib, naproxen, no, mga ganyan. For chikungunya, after you have excluded dengue, then yes, you can give NSAIDs for chikungunya, no, for the arthralgia and arthritis. So avoid in the first few days if dengue cannot be totally ruled out. So you can give tramadol, pag ganyan, no, to relieve the pain. But if you have excluded dengue, then you can give your NSAIDs. NSAIDs sa Zika, no specific contraindication, but you can give paracetamol. If you have ruled out Zika, then NSAIDs may be used, no, if talagang hindi kaya ng paracetamol. Corticosteroids and dengue, do not use, no? Okay, so walang difference, no? No prevention in terms of mortality or no evidence to shorten illness duration. So do not use corticosteroids in dengue because RCTs show no benefit. Corticosteroids in chikungunya, limited evidence in severe or chronic, but short course may be considered if debilitating na sila and if they do not respond to NSAIDs or your DMARDs, no? Not for acute illness, no? Kasi very active ang viremia dito. So for the first 5 or 7 days, you might want to give muna paracetamol. Pero if persistent pa rin, you can give NSAIDs first and then corticosteroids to adjunct lang your NSAIDs kung di kaya ng NSAIDs alone. Corticosteroids, no proven benefit, no? So, ano pa rin talaga, supportive measures, supportive pa rin. It may be considered if for GBS, myelitis, encephalitis, but corticosteroids in general for Zika in mild or probable, or even confirmed, hindi, wala. IVIG, not recommended for dengue, chikungunya. For Zika, it can be used for cases of GBS complications, no? Okay, for treatment summary for dengue, paracetamol, no NSAIDs, no steroids, no IVIG. Chikungunya, NSAIDs for arthritis, you can give steroids for refractory cases. For Zika, supportive care lang. GBS, you can give IVIG and then cautious steroids in severe neuro cases. I think that's my last slide. These are my references. Buzzer beater 459. Thank you very much.